Take 396. I'm Eric Verkuilen, and I would like to introduce you Nigel Peter, who is going to tell you a lot of interesting things about sacred geometry in the monuments in Wiltshire.
Nigel,
that's me.
Now it's up to you.
It's up to me.
I've learned I don't have to ask many questions.
Yep.
Because when I ask you a question, you're gonna... This is your passion, isn't it?
It is very much my passion. And I've devoted quite a substantial part of my life for the last decade, if you like, to researching. I came in a similar route, looking at Earth energy systems and so on. But now that's progressed on to mathematics. By the way, don't get frightened. It's just the numbers 1 to 9. So there's no equations or anything. It's really, really basic, and it all stems from what we're going to talk about in a moment, which is the Fibonacci sequence.
But you go fast, huh? But before we're going to do that, how did it all start? That's my question, what triggers me.
It's a bit curious, really. My parents used to belong to a local archaeological society, and we used to live in Surrey. And I remember going on a coach trip with them. And definitely we visited West Kennet, Longbarrow and Silbury Hill, and probably Avebury as well. So I thought, yeah, this is quite interesting, but what's it all about? So when you ask the universe what's it all about, the universe wants to tell you. And the fact that we're all gathered here today is a law of attraction event, because we all want to know more truth. And the thing is, if you keep on knocking, the truth will come to you. That is the way the universe works. And it's all emotional, by the way. It's called the law of desire. That's the very first of God's laws you learn. And it's emotional. It's a passion. It's not driven by the intellect alone. It has to be something you feel. Okay, and that's how we're all gathered today in this event. So that's sort of how it started, and it's been on the back burner for many years, and I was not over enamoured with mainstream and what mainstream could tell me about the monuments, so I thought, okay, let's try and do a bit of research myself. And so that was my curiosity got the better of me, and I gave up work in 2013, picked up divining rods, and very quickly found that I had someone sitting on my shoulder who knew an awful lot about Earth energy systems and these monuments than I did. I'm an information diviner, which means I just ask a question and I get a yes-no response on the rod, which means you have to know what questions to ask. So, I mean, I've looked at many other people's work, and my presence here is on the back of many, many other individuals, independent researchers, as well as the care organisations and the archaeologists. Who all specialise in their own subject, and they all do their job brilliantly. So I'm what's called an archaeocryptographer. It's a bit of a mouthful, but basically I just do the mathematics in the monuments. And during my research on YouTube, I came across a gentleman called Carl Munk, who's in the USA, and he claimed to have been taken in his sleep state by the builders of the monuments, or at least a group of individuals who knew the mathematics, and shown how to start decoding them. Now that caught my attention, because it's nothing sort of too out of the ordinary. And I looked at his work, and if you want to find truth, you have to peer review everyone's work yourself. You can't rely on other people to tell you. You use your own intuition, and this is what Eric's doing with myself. Rather than trying to find me on YouTube, and if you can't find me, just give up. And the way I work is with personal interaction with people, because it's much better to actually speak to people on a one-to-one basis, because you can ask questions rather than just looking at a video and receiving a whole lot of information which you may emotionally agree with or disagree with. So yeah, I started off in the Earth Energies camp with the Michael and Mary. They're the dragon lines which come in over Land's End. They run through the hurlers.
The ley lines, is that correct?
They're called telluric currents. Now they're different because they're energy lines, Ley lines are alignments of monuments in the landscape which may or may not have associated energy systems with them. So there is a complete demarcation. So the Michael and Mary lines are referred to as telluric currents, Telluric. Now if you look in the periodic table, the element tellurium is at number 52. And the numbers 5 and 2 in this science are to do with expansion and compression, and we'll come across that when I was talking about Avebury. So they're expansion and compression lines, and they always run in pairs, and you always have a clockwise flow and a counterclockwise flow. And that's what we're going to find in the Fibonacci sequence in a moment.
Okay.
So my route into all of this came in through the energy systems. But beyond that, when Carl Monk caught my attention, I thought, well, this guy was working from paper maps, and now I've got Google Earth, a wonderful tool. And for all those viewers, go and have a good play with it, because you can get a lot of very accurate measurements on Google Earth. So if you want to find out the truth of things, you've got to measure things. And that's what I did. And about 3 years ago, I couldn't deny that the maths which I was generating from the way I'd been taught to decode the monuments using the grid latitudes and longitudes was actually the same numbers as appeared in another gentleman's work called Marco Rodin, who is presenting what's called vortex-based mathematics, and he's based in the USA too. And that really fascinated me because there seemed to be an awful lot of ring of truth in what he was saying, and I tested out what he was presenting and thought, wow, I think we're onto something here. So armed with the two bits of information, the bits of the jigsaw started to fit together about 3 years ago. And in the interim time, I've found all the constants which are used. They're the figures, the mathematics, which drives this whole system. But just something to make you aware of, the way we're using the base 10 system at the moment is incorrect, because mathematics is three-dimensional. What you haven't been taught in schools and universities is the numbers 1 to 9 have been discovered as part of God's creation, and they have qualities and attributes. So each number has a quality. So if we look at the number 1, that's to do with output. Number 2 is to do with compression. Number 5 is to do with expansion. Okay? But numbers 3 and 6 are to do with the extremes of magnetism. Okay? And 7 is a special number. 7, as most people in sort of New Age terms know, it's the number of the heart, etc. It's a very special number, and it's a prime number as well, along with 3 and 5. 8, if we put the 8 on its side, we get the infinity symbol, and 8 represents infinite source, where energy comes from, originates from. And all energies come from God, by the way. And whether you believe in God or not, it's the truth. And God's not just an energy system, God is an entity as well. And by the way, we're all creators' children, but I'm not going to go down that path just at the moment. So, armed with this data and the way to analyse the monuments, I set forth, and you start to build up a pattern of the numbers occurring in the monuments. So we started off this morning with the sunrise axis at Stonehenge, which is 49.5 degrees from true north. So that's one number you put in the list, and then you start adding to it as you find more constants. And then as you go to each new location, you can actually start the decoding process with more bits of tools, if you like, at your disposal. So here I sit today, sort of 3 years on from matching the two sets of information together, and spent many more hours than I should have done doing this. But it's been worthwhile, because it's extraordinary the way all the mathematics fits together, and it's perfect.
And how many hours, if you may do a guess?
I couldn't even guess. I couldn't even hazard a guess. But literally, most days, my problem is every time I look at something, I discover something new, and then I have to document it. And I've got about 70 pages of stuff to document.
It's a way of life for you.
It is. Obviously, I have to do a bit of eating and a bit of walking around, you know.
Okay.
A bit like the air traffic controllers, they have to get up and have a breather from what they're doing. But yeah, it's fascinating. And as a science, it really knocks you for six, because it's just so incredible the way the whole landscape has been manipulated to actually use every single feature at your disposal to encode the mathematics. And I was talking a little bit earlier, which you may get the clip of, how even the platform height of each monument, so like the sanctuary, which is the sister site to Woodhenge, it's up at Avebury, its height above current sea level is 550 feet. And 550 feet happens to be the circumference, the diameter of Silbury Hill. And if you divide 550 by 4, you get the golden angle, 137.5 degrees. And I think that's probably where we need to start looking at Fibonacci, so you know what this is all about.
You take us on a journey today, because you have several sheets.
Yeah, I've got my information, which I present at Woodhenge. I do it all for free. I run a free school there once or twice a week, depending on the weather, at Woodhenge. And it's for science and education, really, to try and bring more truth out on the planet, because that's the only way we can grow as a society. But it's interesting, because this mathematics is actually the science of growth. It's how all living systems grow, by connection to source energies. And it's also an illustration for spiritual growth on Earth, where we have to learn more truth from our real parent. And that's something else which is going on the parent planet at the moment. And it's got nothing to do with religion. Okay, religion is basically some truth to do with morals and ethics, together with a lot of man's concepts just packaged in and sold as truth, but quite obviously, unless it's loving, it's not truth itself. So one other statement to make on that is that love and truth are joined. Okay, so you and I have been brought up in a society which is pretty unloving. Okay, we sort of take it as normal, but this is not normal, I guarantee you, not from what we had at the very start. So if we're in a degraded state of love, which is what's happened to us in incarnating to the planet, then by definition there's a lack of truth. And just to give you one example, the current Christian religion, working from the book, if you look in Wikipedia, you'll find there's 3,800 different denominations, all trying to get the interpretation from one book of words. And yet truth is truth, it's black and white. There's no grey areas, there's no mystery. I work on scientific truth and not on mystery, things which cannot be explained. So love and truth are co-joined, and that's why, my dear brothers and sisters in the Netherlands and anyone else around the world who's watching, why it's so difficult to find truth on Earth is because our emotional state doesn't allow us to accept certain new information when it's first brought to us. And it takes many, many years for that truth to be proved or accepted by the mainstream, if you like, as scientific truth. But your very existence on the planet today actually depends on a whole plethora of scientific truth and all the laws which govern everything from atomic structures upwards. We could not exist without all these scientific laws, and many of those have been discovered, and we now have mobile phones and jumbo jets. We've discovered the law of aerodynamics and how you can overcome that and so on. So that was a bit of a long-winded introduction, but sorry about that.
But that's okay. You tell about your passion.
Just to warn the viewers that you'll need a long attention span with me, because this is not something easy to learn. You're going to have to sit with it. Everyone likes quick fixes, I know, but it really is. If you want to learn the science properly, then you've got to dedicate time to it and have endless patience, to understand things at an emotional level. Because until you understand things fully emotionally, it's only just an intellectual concept. So, do you want to start with some Fibonacci?
Yes, and, of course.
We'll have a look.
Take us on your journey that you want to share with us.
Well, it might interest you to know that, in fact, this science actually stems from a very, very simple principle. It's the Fibonacci sequence. which I've demonstrated to you by the swells in pine cones and pineapples, which we saw back at Woodhenge. Now those swells, if you count them on pine cones, there's 8 one way and 13 the other way, and with large pineapples it's 13 one way and 21 the other way, 8, 13, 21 on the Fibonacci sequence. So how do those numbers get there? Through the golden angle, 137.5 degrees. And I'll just have to run down.
Now we're going to the screen, yeah?
We'll go for the screen in a second. I'll just take you there. We'll start with Fibonacci then. Okay, so we have the Fibonacci sequence. And the Fibonacci sequence starts with the number 1. Nothing before it, so it remains 1. And we just simply add the numbers together as we go along. So 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay, 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. And then 3 plus 2 is 5. And 5 plus 3 is 8. So that's the way it works. You just keep on adding the previous figure. So there's the 8 and 13, which appear in pine cones and pineapples and sunflowers and so on. And you get the higher numbers as you go out in the more exotic, sunflowers and so on. Now, what most people are not taught about the Fibonacci sequence is something really interesting. So if you divide any two consecutive numbers, the higher by the preceding, if we go down here, there's two consecutive numbers. Every time you go and do the division, it gets closer to 1.618. Now 1.6180339 is an irrational number, and it's called the golden ratio, or the golden mean, or divine proportion. And that ratio, every time you go up one in the sequence, so when we go up to 610 divided by 377, it'll be a bit closer still, and then the next one a bit closer still, a bit closer still. Now, that is one of the greatest illustrations of the supreme intelligence of whoever designed all our plants and things, because it actually shows that this ratio enables the distribution, if you like, it's always working towards divine perfection. So every time we go another part of the cycle, we actually add and get closer to the divine proportion. And it's a spiritual concept. And we should always work towards perfection ourselves. And all perfection is based on love, by the way. So our spiritual progression is love-based. It doesn't matter how much science you know, it doesn't matter. It's your soul's understanding about love. And obviously our parent who created us and all these wonderful things to illustrate these things to us is actually the one who we can learn directly from. I'm not going to go into that specifically in this talk, but it is being illustrated again on the planet at this very moment. So there we are, and the other thing was the golden ratio on the circle, 137.5 degrees, and I do apologize. It's not in this sequence of slides. I'll show it to you later when we come across it. It divides the circumference of a circle in the ratio of 1 to 1.618. So that's how you get the divine proportion in a circle. And it's actually each new fruit or seed component, when it's being created, is thrown out at 137.5 degrees from the previous one, and that ensures that each fruit or seed component, like the child process, can capture an equal and maximum amount of light for growth. And by the way, equality is one of the highest spiritual principles, along with love and truth. So it's a really beautiful illustration we get from Fibonacci and what's in nature, as to the intelligence, supreme intelligence of whoever designed all the plants and animals and things going on around us. The other thing we get from the Fibonacci sequence is, it's called the Fibonacci spiral, or the phi spiral. And that actually, if we expand the 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13 at right angle turns, so each turn between each number is a 90-degree turn, we get that beautiful phi spiral. And of course that spiral is always working towards 1 to 1.618 between the last movement and the new movement. And that system is actually illustrated not only by pine cones and pineapples, but in the seashells. So for instance, the Nautilus seashell, that is actually based on the phi spiral. And it's the most efficient way of making shelter with the least amount of materials, and it's also very, very strong. And if you look inside the human physical apparatus, so if we look, say, inside the fingers, the bones inside the hand, if we call the end bone length 1, so that's the one on the end there, then the one adjacent to it will be 1.618. If we call that one 1, that will be 1.618. And we call that 1, that will be 1.618. And this happens right throughout the body. In fact, if you go to art class and you want to draw the human body, you'll find they give you a pair of dividers which opens up in that ratio. So you can get all the proportions in the face right and where the belly button is, etc., etc. Because I don't know if anyone's tried to draw the human form, but it's actually quite difficult and to make it look good. And by the way, it's the golden ratio which actually gives things beauty. That's why the physical form is a work of, it's the highest of the Creator's creations, in fact, on the physical plane of Earth. So there we go, it's a little bit of introduction to Fibonacci. We'll next go to the next step of Fibonacci, because this is where the real magic starts to happen. So now we have the Fibonacci numbers, that's the first 24 numbers. We put them in a circle. So we start with the number 1 up top in the red there. Okay, and we progress round 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. When we get to 13, we now do what's called taking the digital root. We produce each multi-digit number to a single digit. And what we do is we just add the numbers together. So 13, we've got 1 plus 3 equals 4. Okay, so the next number, 21, 2 plus 1 is 3. 34, 3 plus 4 is 7. And when we get to 55, we've got 2 5s, which makes 10. We've gone past our highest number, 9. So we cast the 9 out and keep the remainder. And if you do that, guess what? Fibonacci repeats every 24. And that is the real reason why today we have a 24-hour clock. Because this all stems from nature. It's nature's growth engine, nature's growth cycle. One cycle, one day on Earth is one cycle of growth. The sun comes up, the plants go yippee, they put on some growth, and then the sun goes down. And that is the real reason why we have 24 hours in the day. And this has all been encoded carefully by our spiritual brothers who fed the physical plane of Earth with this information through various groups, okay, who've ensured that this information comes to be, along with the systems of measurement used in the monuments. So there's more to this diagram, because now if we look at opposite numbers, if you look at 1 and its opposite number 8, and then 7 and 2, and then 3 and 6, and then 4 and 5, guess what? They all add up to 9.
9, yeah.
And 9 represents spirit. Now, this is where we come to Nikola Tesla. One of his statements is if you knew the magnificence of the 3, 6 and 9, you would have the keys to the universe. And he wasn't joking, because he had realized that there was another number system embedded within the base 10 system. And those numbers are 396 and 693. Now it turns out, when you look at Marco Rodin's work, that the number 6s, and there's 2 of them, one there and one there, and the pink on the left-hand side, and we've got 2 3s opposite on the right-hand side. 6 and 3 represent magnetism, the extremes of magnetism, and they can never be together. And magnetism is controlled and directed by spirit, that's the vertical axis. So the number 9 is spirit, or the ether, as Nikola Tesla called it. And this is where everything stems from, this basic, very, very basic sequence of numbers. So the Creator's mathematics is you're basically looking at the first stage of it here. But where it gets even more interesting, because this is the basis for absolutely everything, this is the same 24 numbers, but I've taken every other number away from the left-hand side and put them over to the right. So it's just so you can see how nature uses these numbers. And by the way, this is mostly Marco Rodin's presentation, so I urge you to look at Marco Rodin's work and support him, because he's shared all his work in the public domain for free, as I've been trying to do. But now if we look carefully, we end up with two doubling circuits. So there's a number 1, and if we look, there's a missing number there, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. Now, with the Fibonacci spiral, each step was a 90-degree turn. So every 4 steps is 360 degrees or 2 pi radians. So as we go from each of these 6 numbers in a circle, it's always a 360-degree circle of turn, effectively. But 1 doubles to 2, 2 doubles to 4, 4 doubles to 8, 8 doubles to 16, but 1 plus 6 is 7. 16 doubles to 32, 3 plus 2 is 5. 32 doubles to 64, 6 plus 4 is 10, we're back to 1 again. That's a bounded infinity doubling circuit, and it goes on forever. It's a clockwise circuit. And also you'll notice we have 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, back to 1 again. And that's the counterflow. They're 2 different direction flows. And everything but everything uses this very basic structure. So you can think of them as the male and female energy flows. And looking at the monuments, over at Giza, we have the River Nile, which flows from south to north. And the Giza plateau is basically male-style monuments because they're square and pointed. And yet over on in Europe, okay, most of our monuments are circular. Okay, so it's circular math. And the main monument, which is illustrating the middle pyramid of Giza over here, is Darrington Walls, which was immediately north of Woodhenge, where we were today. And that monument has a small avenue which goes straight to the River Avon, which runs from north to south. So the north-south flow is the female flow, and the River Nile in Egypt, which we used to go up to the Sphinx. There was a causeway from the middle pyramid down to the Sphinx, and the River Nile used to divert in front of the Sphinx, because the Sphinx has a lot to do with water. I can't prove it yet, but I'm on the way of doing that. So they're the 2 male and female energy flows illustrated next to each of the monuments. So everything but everything uses these 2 counterflows of energy. Now on the right-hand side, you'll notice that up top, we've got a 6, 9, a 3, and a 3, 9, 6 in yellow. And the way they work is actually in a triangular fashion, 120 degrees. So one phase is, if we start with 6 plus 6 there, spirits moving in the opposite direction, 9 and 3. So 693 is one of the numbers which is used all over the monuments, and the other one is 3, 9, 6. And they're the 2 numbers I've highlighted there. Look at Marco Rodin's work, because this is what Marco Rodin and his team have discovered. And I'm eternally grateful to them, because it's explained, how things function in the universe. Also, you'll notice that there's 3 additional 2 sets of ones. There's 3 ones at 120 degrees, the black lines, and 3 eighths. Now, I don't know if you know anything about the periodic table, but the number 1 on the periodic table is hydrogen, and number 8 is oxygen. And what is the very first thing we look for on any planet to see if there's any life? Water, H2O, which is made up of hydrogen and oxygen. So it's just interesting that they're the first 3 numbers, which first number pair, 1 and 8 is a number pair because they add to 9. The other number pairs are 2 and 7, and also 4 and 5. And that's the way the science works. And these alternate numbers can also turn up here in the way this 3-dimensional computer works. So there we go. Everything but everything uses this science. And just, if I can just illustrate, these are Egyptian technology. They're being reintroduced by 2 gentlemen Slim Sperling, and also Drunvalo Melchizedek. These are based on Egyptian technology, and the way these are made are from a single piece of wire. When wire is created, it has a flow pattern within it. Anything which you create in a linear fashion, and to make wire it's forced through a die, it has a flow in it. So to get a positive and negative flow, you have a single piece of wire and you bend it back on itself. So you've got current going one way and back the other way. You then chop the ends and you twist them and you turn them and connect them back in the circle. And this is what's called a light ring. And you can have a go, Eric, and you can maybe feel, it's called a tensor field, which exists. And it's caused by these two counterflow systems of energy. So
is it healing? Is it healing, this?
It can be, but true healing is emotional. This is why I don't really want to call them healing tools. Yes, they can have a healing effect and sort of lessen the effects and they promote good growth as opposed to bad growth. So these are the real deal, and they're made in Germany, I believe, and they're available. They're not exactly cheap because they're gold plated, but they're made out of a copper wire. The other thing is Marco Rodin's The Rodin Torus. Now, I can't actually make it accurately enough. If anyone's tried to make a torus, that's the donut shape, it's actually quite difficult. But basically it's two windings, there's just two coils here, but they go across in a crisscross pattern at 30-degree turns. They're called spires. And look at Marco Rodin's work to actually discover about this. And by the way, churches have spires. Okay, interesting that we've used the same technology, which our churches are like a hybrid of this energy science. And I'll explain more to you about that later if we get the time. But basically there's two copper bands here, and there's a forward flow circuit sitting next to a counterflow circuit. And it goes round to 12 points, 12 around 1. And that's another thing is why we have the 12 houses of the zodiac, because it's the same science, okay? And it's illustrated by the science of the stars. So this science does stretch to the stars. I just do the precession of the equinox, because that's the thing I'm certain about. And the four major stars, that's Regulus and Fomalhaut, and etc., which actually are the four gatekeepers, if you like, of the universe, which don't change their position, they're stationary. So there we go. That's what the technology looks like. And you need this technology to build the monuments. You cannot build the monuments without it, or do the mathematics. So that's Fibonacci, and where Fibonacci has taken us on this first step of the journey. And this is the basis for the entire science, by the way. Everything is based on what you've just seen. So it's fundamentally important that you understand this, because you're not going to understand anything else otherwise.
May I ask a question? This is for the world.
It's for,
but it's also for the people. We have also a Taurus like this, isn't it?
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not promoting free energy, because to be honest, we're doing so much damage to the planet, which is our first home, with our current technology. Introducing and keeping more technology on the planet is only going to make things worse, because we're using up our resources faster than the planet can regenerate them. And that's really, really silly. So we need to look spiritually at what's gone wrong. And that's why I'm not spearheading the Rodin Torus, because you can extract DC current directly off this, according to Marco, and I believe him. And if you make it properly, it glows with a bright white light, by the way. And just the act of making it turns it on. It just functions because it's the right shape. And it's the way energy flows in the universe. So it's superconductivity and the lossless flow of kinetic energy on the torus. And it's all based and done on the torus. So I'm not promoting it, but if you watch Marco's presentations, it's interesting, because he said he wants to introduce this free energy into, guess what? All your growing houses in Holland. You know, all the big glass houses you have for both vegetables and flowers and fruit and so on. So a good purpose and loving use, but unfortunately there's a lot of destructive things you can do with this technology. And historically, 4 times on the planet, this technology has been used to such an extent that it's actually caused cataclysms. It's far more powerful than the nuclear science which we have today, because you are accessing raw energy directly from source. So, but it's cleaner, but we've got to look after this planet. Okay, and this is what I'm doing. I'm doing more the spiritual side, which lets you appreciate that what's illustrated to us through plants and flowers and the physiology of the way the human body is constructed, it's all a hugely intelligent and loving design for us to experience. With sensory inputs, and by the way, all our sensory inputs, they work on the Fourier transform principle. So if you're familiar with that, you need a higher clock rate to detect something at a lower level. So we need to raise our level spiritually, and that is go in the direction of love. Unfortunately, there's a lot of spirits at the moment who want to take the planet the other way. And it's going to be a little bit of a battle, but love always wins in the end.
We have now seen the torus, but the next thing you want to show us?
Okay, well, Eric asked me if I can give evidence for the 396 and 693 in the landscape. So I just have a few slides I've put together. So that's our title slide. In Wiltshire and Dorset monuments. So 3 and 6, don't forget, is magnetism, and 9 is spirit. Now, one of the best illustrations where Eric and party are going tonight, after we've done this, is actually West Kennet Long Barrow. It's one of the best preserved long barrows. And you'll notice that in front of it, on the eastern side, there's a series of rocks. And on the south side, you'll notice I put the numbers 1, 2 and 3. They're the major rocks on the south side. There's one huge rock in the middle. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the north side. And that is the 396, or read it the other way, the 693 of Nikola Tesla. And by the way, the length of the monument, I'm not sure if I've got the slide. Have I got it, the slide? That's just showing you the individual sides. Oh, that's Silbury Hill. Okay, well, I haven't got that slide in because I knew we were going to be a bit tight for time.
No, it's no problem.
But there we go, that's the 1, 2 and 3, and you'll notice that the entrance is between 1 and 2. Now, the height of this monument is actually 572 feet, and it's basically telling us it's about the radian, okay? And there's 2 posts, and you can see one of them in front of this post here, this concrete marker. There's another one a bit further north. These 2, if you actually measure 57.2 feet, one of them goes in between rocks 1 and 2 on this side, which is the entrance into the chamber.
Can you revise it with the mouse? Then
sorry?
People see it that with the mouse that you can show it on screen. Yeah.
So between rocks 1 and 2, that is the entrance to get into the chamber, and it's the radian-based entrance. Okay, and on the other side, if you actually swing from the post we were looking at this way, it goes between 1 and 2 again. So that's 1 and 2, the radian on the 6 side and the radian on the 3 side. And the big rock in the middle is the 9. That is the hole in the center of the torus. So that's the hole in the polar, or the donut. Okay, so 9, spirit emanates from the center, and it moves horizontally in straight lines. It's the only thing which moves in straight lines, by the way. And it manifests physical reality for us in this particular dimension, which incidentally, this dimension is transparent to other dimensions.
This is a monument in England that shows that the 936 is...
We're going to travel past it a little bit later on. Okay. It's on the way to Avebury. It's part of the Avebury complex. I have got a map of that, which I may be able to show you. As we're looking, this is a shot I took of Silbury Hill, directly from West Kennet Long Barrow. So you can see, it's interesting that the small dip in the side is actually at the horizon level, because there's more than one height to this monument. I'm not going to do the mathematics on it, but basically it's got a perfect 30-degree slope angle. As we looked at it, we have a perfect 30-degree slope still after thousands of years. And how on earth they did this to make the monument last, so it wouldn't just go flat, I have no idea. But whatever, it's there today. And you can measure it today, and I've got photographs to prove it. And you can actually, in my main bulk write-up, you can actually access that photo and put it in with this presentation if you like. One of the giveaways about Silbury Hill for 693 is if we look at its grid latitude. So if we multiply the degrees, minutes and seconds together, so that's 51 degrees, 24 minutes times 56.61, we get 6,930, 693. All right, and that is the physical center, one of the two physical centers of this monument. The other one is 55,770, 5577. I'm not going to explain that to you now, but this is another evidence for 693. And Silbury Hill represents the torus. This is what Silbury Hill represents. And it's got two images. It's a shame I didn't put all those images directly together in this presentation, but you can fish, I'll tell you the ones you can fish out if you want. So another massive 693 is actually a monument which you haven't visited. It's called Avebury Hill. Now it's west of here, it's just north of Blandford in Dorset, near Child Oakford. And this one is really obvious because it's actually built in the 693 longitude from Giza. One thing I mentioned at Woodhenge, and I'll mention it again here, this longitude, 33 degrees and 21 minutes exactly. 33 times 21 is 693. Okay, and it's all built in this 693 area. And it's a huge monument. It's 300 feet high and over 2,500 feet long. So you can see this got earthwork running right the way around it. Now I'm sorry, but that's not an afternoon job, and it's precision placed on the planet. So the monument builders had a capability of actually raising the landscape to fit whatever it is they want to present at this location. And it's all on chalk, by the way, which is a super good medium for preserving footprints and things. So where you have post holes and stone holes and things, they tend to get preserved really well. So it's an ideal geology, if you like, for this landscape to be placed. So there we are, and the mathematics in here is all driven, once again, by 396 and 693. And these two markers I put, I'm not going to go into them now, but there's a long barrow on top at 21 degrees, and also a tri-slope feature. And that is directly associated with Woodhenge. I've got the maths for it now. It's just interesting that the longitude which passes through the very top of this monument, and it passes through a circular depression, 59 degrees 55 minutes, 2750. And 275, divide that by 2, we get the golden angle, 137.5 degrees. And that's just going back to the longitude, by the way. The 33 degrees, 21 minutes, that's from the apex of the Great Pyramid of Giza. All the primary mathematics for all the monuments comes from the apex of the Great Pyramid of Giza, not from Greenwich. Greenwich is another meridian. It's a true meridian. It's used specifically with Darrington walls. It may be used with other monuments, but I haven't had the time yet to experiment with it. But certainly it is a legal, it's part of this system, the Greenwich meridian we have today. It's just that we're not doing our maths from the right place for all the monuments around the world. Yeah, just to show you on the bottom edge of this Avebury Hill, there's two cutouts, and they actually produce a 30-degree slope angle, perfect 30-degree slope angle. I have the maths for them, and they run at latitudes of 98,000 and 108. And 108 is a golden angle, by the way. and that's a 30-degree angle. And there is the golden angle, 137.5 degrees, exists in the bottom of this monument on the two lower parts of the embankments which run round. So a big tick in the box for that monument is displaying Tesla numbers. I'll just run through this briefly. This was our excursion this morning to Stonehenge. We were looking here in this diagram in a rather windy condition, so I'll show it to you again here. The two circles, these dots here, are the Aubrey pits. They're in the blue circle, and then in the red circle are the station stones. Okay. Now the pathway which has been constructed so you can run up close to the monument is in green, and it just so happens when you add the Aubrey pit numbers together, where the pathway enters, so there's a bank of 5 together there, they add to a total of 231, and where we exited, we add the 5 numbers of the pits there together, and we get 147. And if you look at my clip, which I did at Woodhenge about the Great Pyramid, the base is 231 meters, and the apex is 147 meters. And by the way, if you multiply 231 by 3, you get 693 again. Because everything's 3 steps away in this science. So that's, by the way, there's 5 different mathematical centres. I've only discovered about 3 of them so far, because I haven't completed all the mathematics. Do you want to run through the hailstones? Because we got interrupted there by the heritage querying our filming and so on. So I'll just run through. Have we got time to do that?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. All right, so these are the hailstone positions. Now 165, and that's its true number, okay, because everything is numbered, and it's on a circle of 264. So that's the actual circle used, the number of divisions, and this mathematics fits into this. So it's stone number 165. That is the big hailstone which we saw and stood by today. The one next to it is hailstone 162. It's 3 steps away, okay? 162 plus 3 gives us 165. And then there were 2 more hailstones. They have to be there because they're part of the mathematics, and it links the Aubrey pits to the hailstones and the station stones. But basically the opposite stone from 165, so if we add or take 132 off, we get 33. On 162 we take 132 off, we get 30. Now they're the 2 primary axes of these sets of stones. And stone number 162, I was actually given by my spiritual friends the actual degrees because I would never find it because it's on a different centre to the main stones, and it's actually 45.8 degrees from true north. Not sure if I haven't got the slide in. But anyway, so the angle it makes from true north is 45.8, and if you multiply 45 times 8, you get 360, and what does 360 mean? It means 2 pi radians, okay? Or 360 degrees. So that's what it's illustrating. And that's the missing hailstone, where there's just a marker. Now the other one's more interesting, 165. That's at 49.9 degrees. And if we multiply 49 by 9, we get, is it 441 or 693? I can't remember
441.
Now. It's 441, isn't it? Okay. So we get actually multiplying the numbers there, and then 4 times 99 gives us 693. That's right, I got it.
Yeah.
So moving the decimal point, and by the way, it's just the numbers which are important. When you move the point in the figure you've got, there's another set of mathematics. So we've got 4 times 99, and the decimal point meaning multiplied, and we've also 49 times 9.
Yeah.
Okay? And so we get 441. And by the way, I made a hash of it the first time. I was up here in May because I didn't have this information on the angles. And I was saying these were 3 and 6. But if you take the digital roots of these two, they're 9 and 3. But the opposite stone numbers, which are stone numbers 30 and 33, that's 3, and that one's 2 3s together, which is 6. That's the 3 and 6 of magnetism. So I was sort of half right. I was just on the wrong set of stones. I was on the set of stones, and by the way, they still haven't looked at that area of ground because they must be there. They have to be. It's part of the mathematics. So these 2 additional heel stones that have been removed, and they will find the pits where they were dug originally. Guarantee you. And I won't go into the diameters because that's what links together all the Aubrey pits and the station stones and everything. But the angle between the station stones, the angle they made was 45.8 degrees, which is the same angle as 45.8 of the 1.162 stone from true north.
How is this possible? Because you showed us in earlier sheets that that everything is connected to 369, that you can count it backwards. But this is made by people.
Yeah.
And the other thing is made by nature. How can I see that?
With the 396 and 693 are what drives nature. And it's how nature connects to source energies. This is how Tesla ran around for a whole day in a Buick which he converted to run on DC current.
Yeah, but Stonehenge is made by the man, but what was the purpose to make this building?
It's to encode this science to the planet and in some kind of indelible format where it can't easily be erased. And even though, I mean, things like the lesser cursus, there's only an outline in the field of where that is. Yeah, I've got all the maths off it. And it's 15 degrees, by the way, which is half of the slope angle of Silbury Hill. And Silbury has 30-degree spires, slope angle, which is the 30-degree spires you see in the Taurus. It's the same thing.
But why did they make it? What's the goal of it to make this?
It's to illustrate the science of growth, which is important for us to understand as a society. Because, to be honest, we're not very advanced, thinking that war is a way forward. It's the most unloving thing you can do. And there's a lot of penalties for anyone who gets involved on your soul, as you'll find out when you pass on the spiritual world. Because anything to do with violence or fear or terror and so on degrades your soul condition. And when you pass to the spirit world, you'll end up in conditions. As you sow, so you shall reap, and your spiritual condition will not let you get into the brighter, more colourful, more beautiful, more exotic locations. And by the way, there's now 36 dimensions associated with this planet. At the time of the first parents, there was just one, and that's dimension 6. And we had a perfect environment to actually, for the first parents to be incarnated into, which was actually in Turkey. And it was a rainforest at that time. It's no longer. It's now a desert because we've chosen to do things our way in a less loving manner. This illustration is all about how we need to grow, and that growth has to be love-based. And by the way, when you move to the spirit world, there's no sun and moon like we have on Earth. All the dimensions, all the 36 dimensions are illuminated by the amount of love in the individuals who live there. So if it's lack of colour and not very particularly warm and it's barren landscape and so on, that's a low dimension. And then things gradually get brighter and more colourful as you move up through the dimensions. But even the second dimension is like 10 times better than anything you can experience on Earth. This is why anyone who wants to come back to this planet, well...
Is it a trap then, that we be here?
Not really. You see, Earth is a unique location because you can actually start developing your own soul condition in the direction of love by getting rid of all anger, sadness, grief, resentment, judgment. They're all qualities which are not in the Creator's soul. So these are all human conditions we've made because we turned away from love. We didn't want to listen to our parent to get our proper education. It doesn't matter how much scientific knowledge you know, it doesn't matter. All that matters when you pass on from earth life is your soul's condition in love as measured by God's laws. As you know, we have human law on earth. But what you're not aware of is that we're subject to God's laws 24/7. And by the way, when I refer to God, I'm not talking about a God of religion. I'm talking about a God of love who is perfected in all qualities. No imperfections. In fact, we couldn't exist if there was any perfections in the source which made us, because we're all child learning processes. So perfection has to exist before we can actually become a child learning process. It's quite a profound statement, but it's also a true statement, because your existence and mine have to are enabled by a whole set of scientific laws which are fixed and they never ever change. Without those laws, we couldn't even exist.
Is that also that why Stonehenge is built, to show us something like that, the truth, or is it different?
Yeah. Well, there's someone back on the planet at the moment, 2,000 years on, and is teaching scientific truth, not religion. It's got nothing to do with religion. And this gentleman teaches about Fibonacci in the way which I'm introducing us to here. And that scientific truth is all love-based. Love and truth, as I mentioned, are joined. And the only way we're going to get out of this nightmare is to actually move in the direction of love, which means getting rid of all our unloving systems on earth. And getting rid of all fear, so we can have free will, but use our free will only in the direction of love. And that is what we've all got to. So the whole process, the whole planet's got to go through this. And it started again in 2007, and it's continuing now. But something that caught my attention by this particular individual in one of his presentations on faith, he said that historically, you may have heard me say that if I don't speak this time around, then the stones will speak. And that caught my attention because I was already looking at these monuments. So I thought, oh, that's interesting. I think I need to investigate these a bit more. So I think my spirit guides are actually helping me marry together the spiritual aspects of this wonderful science, if you like, so that we know what we've got to do as a society. You know, it's cut and dried. There's no New Age concepts, there's no religious concepts involved, whatever. It's black and white, because love and truth are joined, and we have to have more truth on the planet. And that is what is going on at the moment, because when you learn the truth emotionally, and the biggest truth you learn, there's no death. You're going to be around forever. So you better keep interested in learning stuff.
Yeah, but you say it's interesting, the stones will speak, so that's what we see, yeah? What you take us on the journey?
This is what I'm marrying together. This is why I'm not into free energy. It's not going to solve our problems. If Marco wants to do that, that's what's in his camp, okay? And I understand the reasons why he wants to do that, because it's from a loving perspective, which is a beneficial thing for us to do. But like I say, there are other ways that science can be used and have been used historically, which cause the cataclysm. And by the way, we've done so much damage to the planet at the moment that we're right on the point of the planet might have to take corrective action, because this has to remain a home for all of God's creatures, of whom we're one. We're just the one with the human soul, which can expand infinitely, by the way. So your progression, should you choose to go on what's called the divine love path, is infinite. Mm-hmm. And you do that by a personal relationship with God, your parent.
Yeah, but you see it in the. I try to better understand it on in my. For me, well, is you try to understand the how the forms are outside, natural forms, and to understand the geometry. And then you see how nature works. Is that a good explanation?
Yeah. It also extends to the human chakras. And it's something I'm going to run through with Eric a little later on. The specific numbers associated with the chakras. And chakras are multiples of 7. Every 7 is like an upgrade in this science. And it's a universal science that extends through all living systems. So if you understand the chakras, and when you connect to your real parent and receive the Creator's love, don't forget love and truth are co-joined, and you emotionally learn whatever truth you want to learn about directly from source. No books, no churches, no religion. You can have a personal relationship with your real parent. Unfortunately, we've all been brought up by those naughty boys and girls on earth who are just our brothers and sisters, who created our physical and spiritual bodies for us, who've introduced us into, the world's definition of love, which for most people is quite tedious and, and painful experience we have because we don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, but you understand love also through
I know how the spiritual universe works.
And through the
I'm marrying the two. I'm trying to marry the two together. So that we have a clear illustration that this guy is actually telling the truth and needs to be listened to.
Okay.
But the problem is, error always fights for itself. Okay, if you look at the Wright brothers, people would have laughed at them when you said, "Oh, we're going to fly." Because they say, "No, birds can fly, but we can't." But they looked at the profile of the bird's wing and thought, if we can reproduce this, have some kind of power source, then we can get off the ground. And look, we've got jumbo jets today. We're not laughing at you now because most people have been on a plane.
Yeah.
But when it was first mooted that this was possible, people just laughed.
Yeah.
And so this is why error always fights for itself, and that is the difficulty with getting out of this this is what we've created. This is not what we're supposed to be experiencing. We had a paradise and no need to sit on our backsides earning money, to do difficult things we don't necessarily want to be doing all day. We'd rather be playing and experimenting and looking and observing nature and the beauty of the landscape which was here originally. Yeah, Silbury Hill is 550 feet diameter with a perfect 30-degree slope angle. And its smaller one, which is over in the Avebury College, is exactly half that. So it's 275 feet diameter, which is 2 times the golden angle, 137.5 degrees. So 550, that's 4 times 137.5, and then 2 times 137.5 is the diameter there. I've only done the mathematics in the last few days for the mound in the college there. I haven't really got a slide prepared for it as yet because I've only got the vectors for it, but it is a true replica, a miniature version of Silbury Hill. Same 30-degree slope angle. And it uses 30 and 60 to generate the latitude and longitude, the same as in the mathematics for Silbury Hill. It uses 30, and the opposing angle from 30 is 60. 30 and 60 make the 90-degree right angle. I don't know about when they're built specifically, but they're all part of the same construct. You can't really take anyone away. The whole plan had to be conceived and started to be rolled out, and that starts basically with the Sphinx. Let's just hop over to Giza for a moment and look at the Sphinx. One of the greatest enigmas to mankind, but in fact it's the basis for this entire science. Now, just looking at the Sphinx, what are the most prominent features on it? I'm moving on my marker on them.
The feet.
The feet. And what's the systems of measurement used in the monuments?
Feet.
Feet.
Feet, imperial feet. So the lion has 4 feet, all right? Now, if you look at the height above sea level of the platform it's sat on, it's exactly 60 feet. We've got 60 feet, and then we've got 4 feet on top. And if you multiply 60 feet, the height it's sitting at, by the 4 feet, we get 240 feet, which is the actual length of the monument. Ta-da! Okay. It's crazy, but it's there. Anyone can check this out. And by the way, on it says that there's a hall of records underneath the lion's paw. That may well be true. I'm not interested in digging for anything. I just do the mathematics instead. Now, instead, we go to this little bump on the chest of the Sphinx, and that is what the Arabs call regulus, or the lion's heart. And that is, the feature on that is actually Leo, the lion, and the constellation Leo is the start of the great year. That's the 25,920-year precession of the equinox cycle of Earth. So the Sphinx is actually looking at the start of the cycle. And that's why it's orientated. It's actually 91 degrees from true north, as you can see there. So there we are. directly opposite. And by the way, the axis goes through not the Great Pyramid, the Middle Pyramid, which is the 3, 4, 5 pyramid, and it cuts it into, it divides the 700 foot length side, which is the casing length of the side, into 1 and 5. So it divides it into 6. And that's all to do with Coneybury and so on, because all that science comes in from there. And also, when you divide the height of the Middle Pyramid into 4, you get 116.666 recurring degrees. And that is what the Stonehenge landscape is partly about, with Coneybury and so on. So, and the opposing angle to this, and hopefully I'll put the slide in, if I can remember now. I sort of run out of time. Okay, so this is now Stonehenge. And if we now apply the 91 degrees into the Stonehenge sarsens, you'll see that it cuts across. And if you look at the numbering of the horizontal stones, that's the circular stones, they start here at number 1. And 271 degrees actually happens to be the start of the female cycle. So we've got the male cycle, Leo, over on this side, and opposite that we've got Aquarius. And by the way, one of the spiritual signs for Aquarius is an angel. All right, plan coming together. And where are we? We're just going into Aquarius. It started around the year 2000. So there we are. Stonehenge is actually, and also the Sphinx and the Giza Plateau, they're part of an astronomical clock which measures the precession of the equinox.
It's built by the same people, you think, isn't it then?
Yeah, well, these people, they're thousands of years old, and they've been through different cycles, and they know all this science. And so this is illustrating our history as well, of the planet. We're in cycle 7. Jesus, spill the beans, okay, informs us that we're in cycle 7. So we've just come through with the end of the patriarchal society, and we're going to move into an emotional society, because all spiritual growth is emotional.
The seventh cycle is the seventh cycle of 27.
Since the first parents, there's been 6 complete cycles, and we've done halfway through the 7th cycle.
Of seven
yeah, this is the final
26,000 years.
Yeah, 25,920 years.
Yeah.
And that's divided into the 12 houses of the zodiac. That's why we have the 12 houses. Because this is referring to the way the precession of the equinox on the Earth, 1 degree every 72 years, like a spinning top.
Okay.
So it's our history, okay, from the first parents to date, although unfortunately the cataclysms erase prehistory. So we can only go back, Göbekli Tepe, we're up to, 10 or 12,000 years now, something like that, which is just after a major cataclysm. And Carl Munch says that was when there was the 30-degree pole shift. So it tells you that these monuments were constructed post that last pole shift. Yeah, there's lots of underground places. The Giza Plateau is riddled with them.
There's an underground...
yeah.
They delete our history.
We need more truth, because it's the only way we're going to progress. And keeping people in the dark does not help. We need more truth, and that's really what I'm about. So,
how can people follow you? Can they contact you, or can?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a small number I can cope with it, but I can give you a link to my research papers, which actually take you through a learning process. It's available on Google Drive, and I have that link, and it can either be made available through Eric or whatever. I'm happy to share that link. So I'm pretty happy and certain with what I've got now, because all the maths is working. It's taken a long effort, a lot of effort to get this working. You've got to work so accurately to actually discover the actual system which drives this. So
okay. Thank you very much, Nigel, for
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it's a bit long-winded, but there's so much I've got to present, and maybe I'll come back next year or whenever, and we'll do some more, probably in an environment like this, because it's a bit of a, if we get bad weather or anything, it's difficult to do the talks outside.
Thank you very much for your cooperation.
It's been my great pleasure.
And your passion and to share everything.
Yeah, as you can see, I'm pretty passionate about it, and I will continue to bring out more and more truth. So
that's for sure.
That's my present to everyone who's watching.
Okay, thank you very much. And we also want to thank Eric for this opportunity. And if you're going to travel with Eric to England to take a journey, you're also going to meet Nigel in real life. And I think it's very inspirational. Also, if you be on the power places and hear the stories, then it's extra. What it has done with us is magical. So, and sometimes I'm be honest, it's going too fast for me, but I feel you share things with your heart, and the information, you are very accurate what you're doing. So that is very good. Thanks.
Okay, it's been my pleasure. Here.
Thank you, the watchers. Share this interview with somebody who loves it. We have made it with our heart. This is our first international interview. We are very happy that we have the opportunity to do this. And maybe till next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye. And spread the love, not fear. That's an important message also from Nigel.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.